Hey everyone, Michael Pickens here with the Libertarian Leadership Academy weekday podcast where I interview exceptional libertarian candidates and activists who are doing some amazing work to advance the cause of liberty. Today we have a very dynamic candidate on with us today. She's Lauri Shillings out of Indiana, running for Secretary of State. She has actually ran for office before, ran for Congress in 2024, worked on the Don Rainwater campaign, and worked on the Chase Oliver campaign. Lauri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Michael. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to see what's in store.
Absolutely. So the first question I always ask candidates is why? Why are you running for office as a libertarian?
Well, to be honest, it is something that I feel called to do. Our Secretary of State's office has been mismanaged for a long time. And most recent, the person who's the incumbent has been all over the headlines for things. And as a Secretary of State, if you're making headlines, you're probably not doing something you're supposed to be doing. So a lot of it is my background is in systems, business, management, as an operations expert in those things. And so when I see business structures not being adequately served, I come to it from a service mindset rather than a political mindset.
Yeah, so the office of Secretary of State, their job is to, I would assume, make it streamlined for someone to start a business, right? I would assume that.
Yes. That is one of its primary goals. Other than being the chief elections officer in Indiana, they also run business services. They handle all the paperwork for your LLC, and they are record-keeping functions for the state. They handle car dealership licensing, and then stocks and securities as well, financial things like that. So, it's an important role, but you just don't think about it a whole lot until it's like something goes wrong in those areas.
So what is going wrong in the Indiana Secretary of State's office that you would fix?
Okay. So
here we go. We only have half an hour. So
I know. All right. I'll try to be brief. All right. So the current Secretary of State office has had a lot of headlines recently with our elections. And a lot of that is he was the first one to pony up our voter rolls to the federal government without even a qualm, which is a privacy issue. Because it is one of those things where it's certainly not necessary. The states have their own sovereignty when it comes to running elections. The federal government really shouldn't have any interference in that other than guidance on federal races, right? But his name is Diego Morales, is the current incumbent of Indiana. And beyond that, he has had credible sexual assault charges on him prior to becoming in this office, 2 of them, as a matter of fact. He has bought luxury vehicles on taxpayer dime. He has traveled overseas and alluded that his role was something other than just being a manager for the offices of Secretary of State, trying to get visas for people, speaking at high-level right-wing kind of conferences. And it was kind of interesting. He avoided a budget hearing to go take these trips. He hires his family for 6-figure salaries. And then on the spot bonuses, which he then asks people to contribute back to his campaign. It's been a lot of dirt. And most recently, he's had election law issues. He's got a bit of an issue where he has used actual work of monitoring an election in a campaign ad. So that's election finance issue. Which is illegal. You're not supposed to put those kind of things into your personal campaign. So that is currently being looked at. He's not really managed the office very well.
Yeah, it sounds like he's using it for personal enrichment and the enrichment of his campaign and friends and family.
Yeah, that would be the absolutely what is been alluded to for that.
Gotcha. So besides that, you ran obviously for Congress in 2024. Do you have like personal reasons on why you're running for office and why you're active in campaigns? Have you been hurt by the government and you're trying to fix things?
Show us where they hurt you. Well, Well, part of it is government overreach into our personal lives. They really have no business being there unless, it is to enforce contractual arrangements, or unless there's been a crime against a human being. And so those are the kind of things that they're there to kind of make sure, as the libertarians say, if they're not hurting anybody and not taking their stuff, the government really shouldn't be involved. And I very much believe that. I was raised in a pretty much a Republican household, but when I started seeing them reach into women's lives, and then my cat's back here wiggling, so it makes the camera go strange. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
So when they start reaching into the women's lives, when they start taking away, like they're trying to do the SAVE Act right now currently, and that really is a poll tax on anyone who's changed their name. It's going to be a hardship to try to get a passport. They have to go and do their backtracking. If they've been married or divorced, they have to have certified paperwork for that. And so these are just multiple compounding issues with our government just straining themselves into our daily lives. And I really feel it's an infringement on our personal liberties. And, they're serving themselves and corporations rather than the humanity of our populace, which I feel is an issue. My father and mother were both first responders when I was growing up. He was a fire chief for a long time, almost 50 years of service in our community. And I see the shining example of how you're supposed to behave in civil service. And then I see what other government leaders are doing. And I'm like, something's wrong with this picture. And I know people can do better. And I know I can bring that spirit to this race.
Awesome. Can we hop back to the SAVE Act? To be completely honest with you, I have not done a lot of research on it, and there might be other people watching right now that haven't done the research. What does it do specifically that's going to make it difficult for women to vote?
So the SAVE Act is specifically supposed to keep non-citizens from voting. And it is a way for them to say, in order to register to vote, you have to bring documentation, a birth certificate, and proof that you are an American citizen to a clerk's office to register to vote. And it's a burden of proof on people in America to do that. Usually you can go to the BMV in Indiana and you can say, yeah, sure, I'd like to register to vote. You've already given all the documentation that you live here. You have to get a driver's license with a thing. You have to bring in a receipt for a utility bill. You got to prove that you're here legally. You can't vote illegally as an illegal alien in America right now anyway, because it's a federal crime and you get deported. It's a very low chance of that actually happening. They have done multiple audits and found just under 1% fractional amount of people who've voted illegally. So it's not enough to really sway any one race. And they've invested a lot of dollars into doing that. So why it's a burden on women specifically, let's say you've been married and you've changed your name. You have to have a document that your birth certificate now is exactly like the name that you have. If it doesn't match, you've got to find a way to make that match. So if I'm married and divorced, I have to have my marriage certificate and my divorce certificate, and it has to be certified. And then I have to take that with my birth certificate, and then I have to get a passport. That is the best way to be able to register to vote now, to prove you're an American citizen.
You have to bring the birth certificate and the passport?
You have to bring everything that you can possibly get, everything that you would have to get a passport and or the passport itself to prove that you're an American citizen in order to register to vote. Now, let's say you've already done that. You've married and divorced and you've moved. You have to re-register. You have to bring that documentation again. It is very challenging for women specifically. Men normally don't change their name when they get married. So their birth certificate is the same as what it is today, their name. Like me, mine is not. So I would have to go back and get all that documentation. Luckily, I did go get a passport 4 years ago. And I knew it was going to be a necessary item to prove my identity because they were talking about the real ID even then. So it has been a challenge to try to defend this move for SAVE, where people are like, no, it's great. We should have American citizens voting. I'm like, you already have American citizens voting. It's going to be now a burden of proof. And a lot of people are not going to be able to vote now.
So is it just to register to vote, or is it you have to bring this to actually vote?
You have to use it to register to vote.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was going to say, I don't have a passport and I don't even have my birth certificate. So
if you wanted to move and register again, if this SAVE Act passed, you probably wouldn't be able to register. You probably would not be able to vote.
Oh wow. Yeah.
That's the
I'm in Arizona
reality.
right now.
That's the reality of
Okay.
what I'm looking at.
Didn't it pass yesterday?
It passed the House. It's in the Senate right
Pass the
now.
House. Okay, it's got to go through the Senate. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's not going to Trump to get signed yet.
Not
But
yet, but they are really pushing for it. And under the
yeah.
guise of making voting safe again, it's already safe. There's literally no option about that. Is there's such a small amount of observed illegal voting, and they almost always catch it.
Well, so in Washington State, our oldest daughter just went to get a driver's license, and there were, Guatemalan immigrants in there. And in Washington State, when someone gets a driver's license, they are automatically signed up to vote, right? That's a little checkbox. So there's a lot of concern in Washington State, and according to, some of the research that's been done, there's over 200,000 um, immigrants that are not citizens that are on the voter rolls in Washington State. So it could be the case in some states where the rules are a lot more lenient. I can understand that maybe in Indiana that's not the case, but so I can see
We
there's
have
some concern.
So I could see it in if there's occasion for that. And we do have that option in Indiana to check the box to would you like to register to vote? It makes it really
Mhm.
convenient, really easy. This would do away with that entirely. You would no longer be able to do that. It would force you to go to a clerk's office to register to vote in its current state. You wouldn't be able to mail in registrations at any kind. You would have to physically present yourself. Now think about the logistical challenge. Let's say in a perfect world, everyone had $165 to go get their passport. And now they want to go register to vote.
Mhm.
And let's say it's a high urban area like Indianapolis, which is like the 16th or 17th largest city in the nation. And so that clerk in that area or multiple clerks are now forced with hundreds of people. I need to register to vote. The logistical problem of that is also an issue because they're not staffing that. They have the bare bones amount of people to run the office. Now they're doing a stellar job, those clerks. They're
Yeah.
heroes, but good Lord, could you imagine how many people are going to be showing up? No, I need to register to vote. The lines, what that's going to be like.
Yeah, it's hard enough to get into the Department of Motor Vehicles, right? So Danny Lundy says Kansas did something similar, and about 30,000 Americans were unable to register to vote. They were disenfranchised, and that law was struck down as unconstitutional. Thank you, Danny, for your comment. So it seems that this has been an issue in
It
the
is.
past in Kansas.
And they're, with the federal government requesting voter rolls from everybody, they are absolutely going through and trying to purge those voter rolls. They went through and removed quite a few of them in Indiana this past fall. People who had voted forever are now like, no, I have to go re-register to vote because it just magically was removed from the voter rolls.
Wow. So let's talk about some other aspects of your campaign. Are there any other issues that you are running on that will improve the office of the Secretary of State?
Yeah. So I've been campaigning for about a year now. I announced at our last state convention in March. And so I've been campaigning this
Awesome.
past year, fundraising as well. It's going really well. Of course, we always need help with that as libertarians. But
Sure.
one of the things that I have talked to business owners, people who are running LLCs, then other candidates, affiliates, county affiliates, always have trouble with the Secretary of State website. It is
Mhm.
old, it is cumbersome, it's almost like it was made in the 80s and 90s when the internet was first invented. It is
Probably was.
it was very, very hard to navigate, and if you make a mistake, you have to call if you catch the mistake and,
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I've made a typo, can you fix that?" And it takes several days, and then it's a physical person you have to talk to, you can't just go self-correct that. My background is in marketing and design and website creation. I absolutely feel that is the number one thing I can do to make lives easier. And the number one thing people tell me about every time I ask them about their dealings with the Secretary of State.
Awesome. Danny says donate at lauriforliberty.com. Don't Danny must be a supporter of yours.
He's actually my campaign manager. So thank you, Danny, for chiming in.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. So you've been campaigning for the last year, which is great. A lot of times candidates, they wait until the last minute to the filing period, but obviously you've helped out on some high profile campaigns and you understand the runway, right?
Right.
You understand what it takes to building up the campaign. So that's awesome that you did that. As far as small business goes, what can you do in the office to streamline, small business? I know in Washington State to register an LLC, it's like $300, and then you have to go and register it with your county or city, wherever you're at, and you got to pay them more money, right? It's just all these barriers to entry before you can even collect a dollar.
Right. There is a fee to that in Indiana. I don't think it's not $300. It's about maybe 100 something. I just did that myself. I've had a business for a long time. Finally decided to make it formal a couple years back. Went through the whole thing, and it is cumbersome to go through that website. Firsthand
Yep.
experience is it's like you're crawling through a Google form that does not respond well, and then it's like divided. Like it's not like a single form. You're like, I've done the first 3 questions, and then submit and go to the next page. You can never go back and fix it. Never happens.
Oh no.
It's an issue. So first and foremost, make that functional for businesses. Make it so that it's a logical user experience on that site so that when they finish a form, it's like, you've done the step. Great. Now go do this. People were asking, do I have to now go get my EIN? Can I do that here? No, that's a separate thing you have to do with the IRS,
Yep.
right? You've got to do that there. There's no real guidance for that. And then there's other laws where they say, hey, you have to come back and do like a biannual filing that says you've done these things, you're still an owner, whatever. Here's your legal business address. Are you still really in business? And those are the kind of things that you'd like to have good reminders of. And then, political campaigns, especially too, it's cumbersome to try to find the forms. They are just a line list link, and you don't even know if you're getting the right one because libertarians are different. They have to have a special form. This past year, they didn't even have libertarian forms on the website. We had to call and request it from the election division. It was
Not
interesting.
surprising.
Yeah.
Make it harder for new candidates of new parties to get registered to run for office. I can see that. Putting imaginary barriers to entry. Well, not imaginary, but obviously it's hidden barriers to entry. You have to call and you have to do the extra steps. And if you fill it out wrong, they're going to come after you.
Right. And it's such a, important step, and you want to make sure you're doing it right. It's nerve-wracking enough. You're like, I'm going into business. It's an expensive thing that you need to do. It's a leap of faith of your own capabilities. And then now I have this legal obligation. Am I doing that right? Am I sure? There's no like real quick help with that. As much as people hate to say I hate AI chatbots, this is one instance where it would streamline that. These are razor thin staffing margins at these offices for the state. If there was an AI chatbot that says, hey, I see you are paused here, or you're doing something, can I help you with anything? And just find an answer for that really quickly without having to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that's trying to file legal paperwork for candidates. That's another thing that's come up recently.
Especially if you have a deadline.
Well, about 300 candidates had to refile their paperwork in Indiana because they didn't have the appropriate person certifying their oath to become a candidate. They had to redo all that.
Wow. So Tony Williams, running for Justice of the Peace, said the State Department sites are complicated by design and help the incumbents. And Tony's actually going to be on the show tomorrow. So
nice. Welcome aboard, Tony.
And is that what you're seeing? Like, are the sites just antiquated and they're just old, or is that on purpose? Is the design on purpose?
Definitely antiquated. Definitely outdated. Could be because they don't have a budget to improve it. I think that it could be done in a much more functional way, and it needs to be invested in to make this a more proper way to do things business. When you're operating a business, it's the first viewpoint to your customers, okay, is your website. Why would the Secretary of State's business website not be top notch? And it needs to be. And I will mention that the Secretary of State's office in Indiana is also very important. You talked about having access to ballot. We already have ballot access in Indiana. It's dependent on our Secretary of State race. So we have to get 2% in Indiana. So, no pressure on me. We got to make sure we get that done so we maintain our ballot access.
Wow. So, you're running a very important race, obviously.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy that you started a year ahead of time. Joseph Lehman, running for Congress in Oregon. I just interviewed him yesterday. He said, "Good luck from Oregon. Your platform sounds like exactly what Indiana needs."
I certainly hope so. I'd like to think so. We've got some up and coming younger individuals on the Democratic side coming in, and they of course they're not on the primary ballot. they select their candidate at their conventions, just like libertarians do. And then it's on the general ballot in November. So we look forward to that and possibly some good debate discussions this fall.
Gotcha. Do the Republicans have a primary, or
They have primary for local offices, but this race, Secretary of State, is only selected at their convention. So primaries don't vote on Secretary of State. It is only brought forth at the November where the actual populace gets to vote on.
Gotcha. Well, you've still got 8 months or so until that election's coming up.
Right.
But awesome. So your background is obviously marketing and business, as you were talking about. So I'm very excited. Are you currently running ads, doing any type of promotion like that?
We do a heavy social campaign right now, and then direct mail. We'd like to do more direct advertising. So we have a marketing plan in place. So once we do like awareness right now, and then once the campaign for delegates is over, then we go to general voting. So that split comes in March after our state convention. But yeah,
that is awesome. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. A lot of libertarian campaigns just aren't doing the advertising and the marketing to get the message out there. And if you're in business, you understand the visibility, credibility, profitability, progress, to where you have to be visible. People have to get to know you, like you, and trust you before they're going to vote for you. And a lot of times libertarian candidates aren't even getting the visibility that they need so people can get to know them.
Right. And they usually start like, oh, well, I guess I'll run. Somebody's got to do it. And I mean, everyone that's a libertarian watching this understands that statement, because you're oftentimes like, man, we really need libertarians to run. But getting them to do that work is very hard sometimes, right? It takes an involved individual, someone who really believes in the cause, to go be a candidate. And kudos to all of them who do, because they really do the work.
Yeah, so I always encourage someone who's running for office their first time, or they're thinking about running for office, to run a minimum of 3 times. Because the first time you run for office, it's a huge learning experience, as you found out in 2024, right? Like, you're getting your website going, you're figuring out your Facebook page and how to qualify for advertising, and starting to recruit volunteers and get donors coming on board. There's so much learning involved with this, and with anything in life, really. So running for office multiple times helps to make it easier. So I appreciate that, this is your second time running, and, I'm going to reach out to the people in Indiana that I know to make sure that they're helping to promote your campaign, because obviously if your campaign ballot access is dependent on it, at least 2%, I mean, this is super important.
It is. It's incredibly important for Indiana. And beyond that, we need someone who has ethical background, business background, willing to do a heart of service for this role. And I carry all that. And it is meaningful to me from a way that I really want to step into this and leave the office more stable and better off than when I found it. It needs to be an office for service. It's not about me as a campaign stepping stone for a higher office. I'm just there to do a really good job. Yeah, and I want to make sure it represents my ethics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like you're leaps and bounds more ethical and more moral than the current incumbent. So,
according to news, yes.
Have you been able to get any, news media, anything like that so far?
We've had some op-eds pick up. I've done some radio spots, a couple podcasts here and there. Thank you so much for your time on your airwaves today. I appreciate that very much. But we're looking for more at all times. We're definitely got a heavy schedule of write campaigns that we're sending out to multiple media outsources for op-eds, letter to the editors, social media topic, really trying to educate voters about their choices and the things that they can do. Not just, as a libertarian standpoint, but hey, this matters to you because you're a voter, and here's why. And I may not be on your primary ballot, but you as a voter should know about primary elections. Because I would have to serve all of those individuals should I obtain the role.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can show people that libertarian most people don't even know what the word means, but if we could show them that our solutions are realistic and common sense and can help them out in their daily lives. Obviously there's onerous reporting qualifications for business owners. If they have to do it bi-yearly, that just is kind of ridiculous. Maybe
Right.
once a year, but having to report twice a year, um, it just makes it more difficult, makes life more difficult. And as a business owner, you're dealing with so much. As a candidate, you're dealing with so much day to day, and the government just doesn't make these things easy.
No, in fact, they make it really easy for you to fail. And
Yeah,
that's one thing I'd like to overcome with education. Teaching voters what their options are, teaching business people how they can better be served. And then, of course, just trying to advocate at the state house for voters' rights. Even if I'm not writing the policy, I can certainly have a conversation in the hallways and try to influence that in some way, which would be super beneficial to have a libertarian in those hallways right now.
yeah,
Um, it is so important to have an advocate for Hoosier voters in that place.
absolutely. Yeah, not just like everyone in the state, because it sounds like the current incumbent is only in it for himself and maybe his special interests. So, and how do you feel about that? Campaign contributions from corporations, from special interest groups, like, is that something that you're able to stand against?
If I run a grassroots campaign, everybody's
Mhm.
individual. Every single person who donates to me gets to see the results of that every day when it comes to advertising that we're putting out there for the marketing materials that we've already given out to counties in anticipation of receiving the nomination,
Mhm.
and making sure that that goes well, educating them about how important this race is, and setting up those future arrangements for that. But it is so important to me to kind of give people another option for this.
Mhm.
There's been a poll that's come out recently where it's like 50 some percent of people would like, I would so on board with an independent candidate. Well, independents don't get elected unless you vote for them. So put your money where your mouth is and go do those things and make a difference in this world, because obviously what you're voting for is not working out. So let's make a change.
Absolutely, and I think you have a good opportunity there, especially with Rainwater getting 11% when he ran back in 2020.
Yep. Yep.
So that's quite a few people that pulled the trigger for a libertarian candidate.
And it made a big difference, right? And people were aware that there's a message out there that really represents them, and it's not just part of the two party machine. And it
Yeah.
makes such a big difference to try to represent actual Hoosier voters.
Well, I like to call it the old parties, right? And
Yeah,
if you look at what's happened over the years, either the Republicans are in power, the Democrats get back into power, and it goes back and forth, and nothing gets better. And it not only does nothing get better, but everything gets worse with
oftentimes,
the
yes.
old parties in charge. And it's exciting to see more quality libertarian candidates all across the country running for office. And you're obviously one of them. So, I wish you the best of luck. And
Thank
luck
you.
is an acronym, labor under correct knowledge. And it seems like you have that. So,
I like it. I'm going to write it down.
absolutely. Yeah. So you learn as you go, right? And you take those lessons and you become better.
Right.
So, um, So, how can someone support you if they like your message, they like what you're standing for, they want to make sure the Libertarian Party of Indiana retains ballot access, and you not only get 2% because that's super low, but like you win the election? How can they support you?
Well, that'd be amazing. And I would be overwhelmed and humbled should that become the case. Support is incredibly necessary at this time. We are working against people who already have millions of dollars in their war chest.
Mhm.
Every single donation matters, big or small. So, LauriForLiberty.com is the website, and there's a big donate today button in the upper right hand side. Would love to see people support me in that way. That is the best way. The other option is to contact us and say, I'd love to volunteer if you're in the state of Indiana. We
Yep.
always need people to help spread the message, do campaign staff work, deliver signs, be a surrogate at events in your area. All those things are so important because I'm one body. And as many times as I'd like to be at every event across the state, I need other people to help me do that too.
Absolutely. So if you're watching this and you live in Indiana, please go to her website, donate, and then go to see if you can volunteer under the contact form. If you're not in Indiana and you want to help Lauri out with her campaign, hit the donate today button. Give her $5, $10, $20, $100, whatever you can do, because every dollar counts. And it sounds like you're putting the money in a place that's going to reach people in that visibility section, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've already got a plan on board to do digital ads, billboards, and paid media spots.
Awesome. Well, Lauri, thank you so much for coming on my show. And I wish you the best of luck, labor under correct knowledge, with your campaign.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate your time and everyone listening to you. Thank you.